recruit the right people. This is where we come back through and we start talking about what is your perfect avatar. Now, sadly, in property management at the moment, what I hear a lot of is that we are recruiting the best of the candidates. That's not necessarily the right person. So we probably need to have some sort of strategy in place that we don't necessarily just accept whoever comes along. Now, of course, you still need to have a person operating in the role, but it might be better to use a temp in that role for a period of time until you find the right person. Because if you put the wrong person into your business, it can be damaging. Trying to get somebody out, trying to develop, trying to get someone who doesn't meet the culture, doesn't fit the right environment, is completely detrimental to your business culture and your business. It's really, really difficult, particularly the laws are really quite difficult to try and get somebody out of a business. But the first thing is that, are you an attractive employer? Are you a person that would people, and the way you can actually tell is if you're an attractive employer is that how many people can you think it right at the moment that you're liaising with that would actually come and like to work with your business? But more importantly, what do your team think? Do your team, and I'm going to show you a couple of things in a second where it says, are you an employer of choice? Are you recruiting the right people? Are you attractive? Do you have the right offer? Or sadly, are you just paying lots of money? So the number two question, apart from money, would you consider your office provides new candidates and current staff an attractive environment to spend their time? Is it a good brand? Is it a good office? Is it a good culture? Is it fun? One of the offices we're doing, our end of month, our end of financial year party, we're doing this in August. The staff, we're going to be doing a wine and painting event, catch up, wine and painting, those sorts of things. It just needs to be a good place. The staff met their budget in June. So now they're going to go out they're going to go to the dinner and go to the movies. They get to pick it. We'll pay for it. So they're the sorts of things. So their leasing budget. Do you have a leasing target in mind every month? And if they do, what happens? So the staff have absolutely worked like cut cats for the last month. And in that particular office, the very first thing when I walked in there yesterday, the very first thing I looked at, went across to the leasing person and said, you've done an extraordinary job this last month. And again, they're all going to go out, the property management team are going to go out and have dinner and go to the movies at the company's expense because we met budget. So they're the sorts of things that you have a look at and say, if I'm going to go out and spend 40, 50 hours a week in an environment, is it going to be a good place? Go back through Seek, have a look at some of the Seek articles. So in October, November last year, Seek record-breaking number of ads. So across the board, that's all industries, record-breaking in October, November. Now, we were coming off the back of COVID at that stage. But what we also notice is at the same times, applications per job has reached record lows. Now, that in part is due to the fact that we've got a lot more roles that are around, but we're also finding that staff necessarily aren't moving. A lot are just leaving the industry or they're completely going to somewhere else. The other thing which I'm finding really interesting, and I don't know about you, but Seek just doesn't have the same appeal as it used to because they're inundated, particularly in our field, it's inundated with recruitment agencies. And what you'll find is that many people that come through the recruitment agency won't necessarily go through Seek and vice versa. The great resignation is yet to be seen. So there was discussion around the fact that, and in our industry, we are seeing a lot of movement, but it tends to be the offices that are struggling, that don't have these points on par. There's a little, you can go through to there and find out more of the information. There's lots of resources that I've tried to put in here. So let's have a look at Seek. According to, and this was 2 weeks ago, there are 3,223 positions available Australia-wide when I just do a quick search for property manager, and then you've got another 1,700 for leasing, so that takes it to almost 5,000, and then another 1,700 for assistant property manager, so you've got 6.5 thereabouts. Property manager, and there's a lot of experience, a lot of positions available across Australia. But then when we come back down below here, we've got some trainee positions. There's just over 100 that have no experience. This comes back to my last point, which is around investing in youth or in juniors. So what you have to be able to look at is, how do we find people that aren't actively looking? And the very first thing that I would suggest that you do is become incredibly focused on your social media output. So really become an attractive, vocal, known presence in your area. So have a look at your social media, have a look at your LinkedIn, have a look at what it is that you're doing, have a look at your website. What does your website say about you and as a place to work? So if you're out and about, so in my area that I'm working with my clients, I try and stay in touch with some of the other things that the other officers are doing. One, because then we can see who the staff are going to be, who are the good staff, who are the not so great staff. But if you've got competitors in your area, staff will be looking at you, and if they've seen that you're doing great things, and it might be, as I said, don't necessarily always post about work. It might be, we caught up for our staff lunch, our end of year financial lunch. It might be, we're out bowling. They're the sorts of things that we're going to be able to then, attract new people to come through. As a principal, you should have a short list of people that you would want to come and work for you. So that should be either through your, maybe through LinkedIn. Have a look at LinkedIn through your area. Encourage your employees to be advocates. I'm going to show you some things in a second where employees are not advocates of their businesses. But make sure, have an incentive for your staff to be out there to go out and recruit. Often you'll find that staff members will be then, if they're out there advocating this is a good place to work, then you'll be able to maybe pick up some work, pick up some staff through your current staff. Stay connected with past employees. Just because they've left you doesn't necessarily mean they're happy where they are. Keeping some contact with your top candidates. There are people that I interviewed 15, 20 years ago that I still stay in touch with now. They weren't right for the role at the time. They weren't right at that time, but I've either done work with them, connected with them. They've been a client of mine. I've introduced them. I've caught up with them at social events, networking events. Stay in touch with good quality candidates, even if they're not right for your business right now, because down the track they may be. And then call upon them. Call upon them because you might find that circumstances both in their world and your world change, and they can come back in through to. And again, some talent pools, top into your talent tools, tap into your talent tools through LinkedIn. Make sure you know who your guns are in your area. What's your avatar? Sit down and go through. I've got a booklet which is all the things that I want, that we want to look for. But what's the perfect person in there? What does that person look like? And please, I don't mean physically, but what are their skills? What's their attitude? What's their personality profile? Do you do a personality profile test? What's their knowledge? And I know that, and I argue this, I know there's a real push where it says, train for attitude, not for skills. I don't actually agree with that. I don't agree with that at all. There's no reasons why you can't have both. So if you've just got a really good attitude, then you've got a hell of a lot of training to do to try and bring somebody up to the skills. What you need to be able to do is you need to be able to have someone that has a great attitude, has the right culture, has the right and fits your avatar, but at the same time, also knows their job, also is technically competent. So don't just go off there and fall into the old adage of just train for attitude, because I don't necessarily think that that's right. You're gonna have the great person working for you, but they're going to completely stuff everything up. So when you have a look back through, what is it that you're paying for the team? Have a look at your market rates. Now, market rates at the moment are ridiculous, and each area of Australia is different. But I'll give you an example of a particular office that I was doing some stuff with. And they had a senior manager that was on around 75, 80,000. Portfolio is around 500 properties. This senior manager, sadly, decided instead of where there was a recruitment, there was a property manager that left, and instead of recruiting a new property manager, the senior said, no, put everything through me and just have juniors. So they had 3 juniors plus VA. So junior was leasing and VA and her. Unfortunately, so she was on about sort of 70, 80,000. Unfortunately, she burnt out, which was evident. At the time, I said to the principal, I don't like this structure. I don't think it's going to work. But she was the senior manager. And that's what they did. She burnt out and she left, which left the office with 3 juniors and no senior staff there at all. In order for the agency to be able to replace that person, he had to pay $110,000 for a senior to come in because of the way the structure was. $110,000, because very few people will take on a portfolio of 500 with 3 juniors. So he paid $110,000. He also paid $20,000 in recruitment fees. And About 6, maybe 8 weeks after the person started, she then informed him that she was pregnant and she was needed to take mat leave in about 7 months. So that was a really interesting dilemma for that particular office. So somewhere in the middle is a blend. What's the market paying for the role? Certainly 80,000 was probably on par for a senior, but the way the structure was not right. But to pay 110, from 80 to 110 was a massive jump, plus a $20,000 recruitment fee. Is your offer attractive? And again, let's come back to, it's not always about money. What's your employee proposition? What are you offering? Go back to those things, the retention. What do we offer? Do we offer at year 1 extra day's holidays off for your birthday? You know, I heard a really good session at PPM when I was there the other week, which was around, if your staff are really busting a gut in their office, maybe then what you need to do is maybe just organise for your staff cleaner, for your office cleaner, to go and say to your staff, I'll organise for the cleaner to go to the house and maybe do an hour's worth of ironing, or, you know, can we get the ironing dropped off somewhere and get that organised? That's the sort of stuff that's going to help your staff members. Yes, it's nice to go to the movies, it's nice to get a bonus, but if someone can actually take a little bit of the relief work off your staff, then it makes a little bit more sense. Standard questionnaires for your receptionist, for all of your roles. Make sure you've gone through and you've got some structure. So the interview that we did last night, we had this for the leasing cadet. So we had a leasing cadet one up here, and I did the interview, and the director sat there and was taking notes, and we're going through, and then we rated the person based on this. Now, I've done this many, many times, so I knew what sort of questions to ask, but the director was filling in all these questionnaires. And then at the end of it, we sat down and we debriefed. We spent about 20 minutes going through and saying, what were the things that were really good? Could this person work? What was the avatar? Did they fit? You know, at the end of the day, it was using the questionnaires that were structuring the interview rather than just a good chat. So do you have questionnaires? And if not, then by all means, you need to have a look at those. JV, I'll get you to pop the induction program into the chat if you can, please. The position description. So the position description that I have here, we've got 10 pages down there. Same for the leasing consultant. When I spoke with the person I was interviewing last night, I said to them, you received this. What did you think? What was your automatic reaction? And his response to me was, it sounds like you're, and this is what I got from the applicant, it sounds like you're very organized and very structured. There's a lot in there. I don't know if I know all of it, but at least I know what the role is. So the next question that I asked was, what's your current position description and where he's working? He's been working there for 8 months. Doesn't have a current description. There is no position description. It's just basically come in and be a leasing consultant. So they're the sorts of things that actually separates your business. One being structured and organized. Okay, I'm just going to grab a drink. Use the process, use the structured interview questions. Recruit the right people and protect your values. Set some clear expectations during the role. Go through the role. When you're in the interview process, explain what it is that you're looking for. Explain that you do performance reviews. Explain that you do monthly check-ins. Explain that you have 90-day check-ins, whatever it may be. There's an induction program. We expect that you know the legislation. If you don't know the legislation, we expect that you know those. Hire people on company values. Hire people and fire on the and based on the hire people and hire and fire based on the company values. Don't shortcut onboarding process. Your Google reviews. Go to your Google reviews right now and see if it's anything that talks about being positive. So I was involved in a rentroll sale not that long ago, and the agency that the client bought from, when I look back through their Google reviews, the principal is absolutely caned in all of the Google reviews. And it often says, you know, X person doesn't return phone calls. This person was difficult to deal with. And that's the principal inside the Google review. So that's both both tenants and also some landlords had actually put that in there. So if I was a staff member and I was going to go and work at that particular place, now, thankfully they've sold the rent roll. They're still operating, but they've sold the rent roll. If I was a staff member, the first thing that I'd do is I'd go and have a look at the Google reviews. And if it said the director was rude, director didn't return phone calls, director didn't do that, or staff members inside of there, that wouldn't be a place that I'd go and have a look at. So again, I used the interview from last night. I asked him, had he looked at our Google reviews? And he said, yeah. He said, I was really impressed with all the fact that the different people inside the Google reviews, because we make sure that our Google reviews have a person's name inside of there. Make sure you get involved in the local community. These are the things that actually make you an employer of choice. Interview techniques. Can they do the job? Are they capable? This is a technical interview. When you're doing an interview, have a blend. It's not all technical. And if it is, if you're just going to sit there and say, you need to be able to tick this off. Can they do the job? Are they capable of learning more skills? And are they, what skills do they have? So they're the sorts of things that we need to have a look at. So the next one is behavioral profile. So past behavior indicates future performance. So what have they, and when you're talking to them, give them a couple of work case examples. You had a tenant that was in arrears. How did that happen? What did you deal with this? You had a landlord that wanted to transfer management. What was your scenario there? What were you doing? You had a difficult staff member. How did you manage that? So they're the sorts of things that you want to make sure when your behavioral profile, when you're doing your techniques, or when you're doing your interviews. And the cultural. So there's a couple of things inside of here to ask these questions. Describe your favorite place to work. So maybe go back through all the places that you worked at. What was the best place? And that can also be asked about your management. So what was the best manager? Can you tell me about the best manager you ever worked with? What was it that they did really well? You can also ask that in a negative. What was it that they did poorly? Why was that your favorite? So they're the sort of things that you want to go through and ask. Some of the biggest mistakes that get asked in interviews. When you're sitting down, use the 80-20 rule. Make sure that when you're in an interview, you're speaking about 20%. Listen to what they say, take notes. And if you're heading down a path, they answer that question and they say something which triggers something else, don't feel bad about taking the conversation elsewhere and then coming back to that same question, asking the question again to see whether they give you the same answer. But certainly don't talk too much. Don't oversell the business. Don't oversell what it's going to be. Explain to them this is what the opportunity is, but don't go in there and be a salesperson. It's nothing worse. And interview when you're doing through to here, interviewing for some tech skills. They're some of the issues. What is your recruitment process like? So what I mean by that is that first interview should be over the phone. Second interview, face-to-face, whether that's through Zoom. Now, there's a really good product, which I haven't got in through to here. It's called Vouch For. You can use that for recruitment. You might ask the person to answer 3, 4, 5 questions, particularly in real estate. And if someone hasn't got the capability of being able to come back and use their phone and answer those questions, they're probably not the right person for you, not in our game anyway. So vouch4.com. So have a look at over the phone, pre-qualify, maybe vouch for, get them to answer some questions, pre-qualify. I always send the position description out before that we send the position description out and ask them to review that and then come back to us if they still feel that they're qualified or capable of doing the role. Often people will look at the position description and said, especially 10 pages, and they say, no, this is not the role for me. So you're better off knowing that before you go through the interview. Then run your interview. Second interview generally was with 3, 4, 5 people in a panel. And what I try to do is I do that on the job. So what I would do is I'd try and invite the person in to spend the day with us, and it would be paid. And then we'll try and give them some time with different people throughout the day. It might be 2, 3, 4, 5, depending on what they are. Sit them with leasing, sit them with trust, sit them with accounts. Go out and send them on an appraisal, but on a routine. Spend some time with the team, and then at the end of the day, get their opinion from the team, because then that's the best way to go through, and then bring them on board. This is what I was going to show here. Now, if you're part of a large franchise, have a look at this, but you can just go on to Seek and have a look at your company reviews to see whether any staff have actually put any reviews inside of here. When we talked about your your staff being the biggest advocates, let's just have a look at this one. I've just I've just copied a couple of large franchise networks across Australia. And let's have a look in through to here. This is what the staff are saying about these particular brands. Now, I'm not saying it's right, wrong, or indifferent. All I'm saying is at the moment, this is what is sitting inside of Seek if people are going to look for jobs. So let's just have a look here at Marshall White. great brand, fantastic place to go and sell through. But when I have a look at this, if I was an employee and I'm looking and saying, is this a good place to go? It says 46% of employees recommend this employer to friends. But they do pay well. And their rating is around the 3.2 out of 13 people. Let's come to Ray White. 62% of people recommend this through. So just over half, a little bit over half, but they're also about 60, 70% that are actually saying that the pay is okay. And there's quite a large number in through to here. O'Brien's, 83% of employees recommend this as a good place to work, but they don't pay very well. So this is, have a look at your business and see where you are rating. So McGrath, 66%, and again, about the same on 65 reviews. Remax, 70%, they pay well. And then we come across to Jealous Craig. Now, I've put this in to draw the comparisons. So if I had a job and I simply draw the comparison in through to here as a naive person, if I had a job and it was at Jealous Craig in a suburb and Marshall White in a suburb, and I was an employee and I was looking at this, I would probably be more favorable to go and look at the Jealous Craig brand. Not because I have any influence over Jealous Craig, and please don't think I don't even do any work for Jealous Craig or Marshall White. But what I look at is I look at this and say 82% of their employees out of 40 have said, yep, this is a good place to work. And 90% rate that they pay well. Whereas I come across to here, they might pay well, but not a good place to work. That's the sort of place that I'm looking at. And this is why I'm saying this is so important. Then you can break this down into individual offices. So I just pulled up Bell in Cessnock. Not all places will have this. So they've got 12 reviews. 86% said it's above average for pay, and 80% recommend. So if I was coming to Bell in Cessnock and I was thinking to myself, oh, I might go and work for that office, and I saw this as a rating on Seek, then that would be encouraging. So you got Google reviews and that sort of stuff. So many offices don't even know that these are here or pay any attention to them. The next week, number 2, rate yourself on your office. Okay. Write out your action plan. What are you going to do for your action plan for this next one?